Good morning, everyone. How are you? I hope all of you are well settled in your house, safe and sound. Okay, let's begin today's program. Today, what we are going to do, students, if you remember, we did the poem God Save the Beetle. We did exercise A, exercise B, exercise C. The third one, think and answer, was supposed to be given. I had asked you to write it yourself. I hope all of you have done it. But now I will be giving you the answer so that you can check it for yourself. Okay? Now the first one, give examples from the poem to bring out the humor in it. Right? If you remember the poem, Lord, please give some sense of direction to this beetle who keeps blundering through the open window and falling into the goldfish bowl. Likewise, the poem continues. Now, the narrator has asked God to give some sense of direction to the beetle. The question says, give examples from the poem to bring out the humor in it. If you remember, students, we discussed that in the theme there is actually two themes. You can say one is the humor and the other one was compassion. Now the first answer, the opening line of the poem, Lord, please give some sense of direction to this beetle, is quite humorous. It makes us feel that the beetle is a bumbling, foolish creature and does not know where he wants to go. And the lines too sound funny, but he keeps coming back, zooming and diving into the room until plop. See, this is going to be your answer. This is the example from the poem which brings out the humor. A little bit of explanation, if you remember, students. We said that the narrator asked God to give some sense of direction. It's as though God is giving some sense of direction, as though the narrator is expecting an answer from God. And he keeps saying, he keeps repeating it to God. But then again, the insect, the beetle, the beetle looks like as though he's a foolish creature and does not know where he wants to go. So this is the humorous piece. One is asking for God to give some sense of direction to the beetle, and the beetle itself is a foolish creature, looks like a foolish creature who does not know that where he has to go. So these lines, you can say, it explains the humor in it, the humor in the poem. Now we come to the second one. Do you agree with the speaker that the presence of the beetle in the bowl makes the goldfish nervous? Do you agree? I'm sure all of you will agree. Give reasons to support your answer. Excuse me. What would be the reason to support this answer? Suppose you say that yes, the beetle was actually making the goldfish nervous. So what would be the reason behind? The bowl of water is the home of the goldfish. All of us would know that. And the beetle is a stranger in that environment. Now, I think just as a stranger's sudden appearance would make us nervous, the goldfish could also feel nervous with the beetle in its bowl swimming round and round. Students, you can, this is going to be the answer, but otherwise if you just take an explanation, if you are staying in your house, your house is a safe place where you stay, and over there, suppose a stranger just walks in. So for a moment you will be startled. You will be afraid also from where the stranger has come in. So likewise, the bowl is the home of the goldfish. And obviously the fish would stay in water. The fish was not expecting some foreign creature to come in water. So as a person would feel afraid of a stranger in his home, similarly the goldfish would also feel afraid, would also feel nervous with the coming of a foreign creature. So this is going to be your answer. Now we move on to the language part. With this we complete the literature part. Now we move on to the language part. Today we'll be doing something else. Okay. Before we begin, I hope it is clear. Thought for the day. Right. What is the thought for the day? Let's begin with this first. Thought for the day. Now, student, the thought for today is, it is given by Thomas Alva Edison. I'm sure you must be aware of this name. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. Almost all of us have been through something or the other, and therefore we can, something like, with which we can identify this statement. See, let's say you are trying to learn a new sport. Let's say you are trying to learn cycling. Okay? Now, the very first time, by now you must be a good cyclist, but I'm sure you remember your first time when you tried to bicycle. Students, I'm sure all of you will agree that in our first attempt, many of us must have fallen down. And not just in our first attempt, in a number of other attempts, we must have fallen down. And it would have been very difficult for us to actually learn to cycle. But with repeated attempts, with repeated efforts, all of us would know how to cycle. So our greatest weakness lies in giving up. If you, for a moment, if you had thought that after the first attempt or after the second attempt, if you felt that cycling is very difficult for me and then I am not going to do it, I won't be able to do it. So if you just leave it, if you just give up at that point of time, then that is our weakness. Our weakness lies in giving up, in in just calling it for a day, like in just saying that no, it's not possible for me, But after that, Thomas Alva Edison says the most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. But if you make an attempt the other time also, if you try and think that no, I will and therefore I can, if you have this mantra in mind, then I'm sure all of you will be successful. This is the meaning of thought for the day. The word for the day is succeed. Succeed means achieve the desired aim or result. If you have really made up your mind for something and you work hard towards it, then you can achieve the desired aim. If you really feel that you have to excel in a particular subject, excel in school, excel in sports, anything, then you have to work towards it and you can achieve the desired result. Then we move on to today's topic. Today we will be doing subject and predicate. You've already done sentences and its kind, students. So a little bit about the sentence. A sentence is made up of two parts, subject and predicate. Like you see it in a picture. The subject and a predicate. These are the two parts of the sentence. How do we understand? How do we understand a subject? Give me a minute. Okay, how do we understand a subject? Subject is about who or what the sentence is about. When we are saying whom are we talking about or what are we talking about, then that particular person or a thing becomes the subject, right? Now, a subject could be a noun or a pronoun or a thing. The doer of the action, whoever does the action, that will be the subject. Then what is predicate? What the subject is doing. The subject is performing some verb, some action, isn't it? So some action that the subject is doing or some work which is done by the subject will be the predicate. What the subject is doing or the predicate of a sentence gives us more information about the subject. And one way to know what predicate is, the predicate always contains a verb. So that way you will understand what a subject means and what a predicate means. So once again, what is the subject? The subject is the person or a pronoun, the noun or a pronoun or a thing, or the doer of an action. That will be the subject. And the predicate, The predicate, whatever the subject is doing will be the predicate. Rather, predicate of a sentence gives us more information about the subject. Whatever the subject is doing, that will be the predicate. Okay. Now, who or what the sentence is about. Like for example, we have taken a very short sentence like Sarah plays. Who is Sarah over here? Or what is this sentence telling us? Sarah plays. So if we just put up a question like, who are we talking about? We are talking about Sarah. So Sarah becomes the subject. And plays, what is Sarah doing? Sarah is playing. So plays will become the predicate. Predicate, the example over here, what the subject is doing, right? Suppose Greg writes. Greg, whom are we talking about? The person whom we are talking about is Greg. So Greg is the subject. And what is Greg doing? What is it in the sentence which is telling you something about Greg? That he is writing. Greg writes. So write becomes the predicate. Clear, I hope? Okay. Now another example. Suppose the sentence is Spider-Man is running after the bad man. Now if we just ask a question, whom are we talking about? This sentence is telling you about whom. The answer will be Spider-Man. So if we ask a question like, who is running after the bad man? Whom are we talking about? That person or thing becomes the subject. So who over here is Spider-Man, and hence Spider-Man is the subject. What action is he doing? Is running after the bad man. So this entire thing is running after the bad man becomes the predicate. Now if you notice one thing, students, is running. See, when we were explaining what a predicate would mean, predicate would contain a verb for definite. Is over here is running is the verb over here. Is can also be considered. So is running after the bad man. This entire part becomes the predicate because this part has the verb also. Okay, we could take one or two examples also. Like suppose Rohan is reading. Rohan is reading. Rohan means the subject. Who is reading? Rohan is reading. So Rohan becomes the subject. Predicate would be is reading, right? Is over here becomes the verb. Reading of course is the verb. So is reading becomes the predicate. So you can see that subject is joined with the rest of the sentence, right? Rest of the sentence is predicate. So subject is joined with the rest of the predicate with a verb. What is a subject? A quick recap. A subject is the person or thing that is doing an action, or the person or thing that is the focus of the sentence about whom we are talking. And what would be predicate? The predicate of the sentence is the part that contains the action. Action will be the verb. So predicate will be that part of the sentence which contains the action. One or two examples over here. Mr. Smith took a walk. Whom are we talking about? Mr. Smith. So Mr. Smith becomes the subject. What is Mr. Smith doing? He took a walk. So took a walk becomes predicate, right? This part is explaining the subject. So this part becomes the predicate. The dentist pulled out a tooth. Who pulled out a tooth? The dentist. So dentist becomes the subject. And what did he do? Pulled out a tooth. So this part becomes predicate. The pig with a big snout slobbered on a kid. Whom are we talking about? Pig. But this part is not enough. The pig with the big snout. So this entire thing. This is a particular pig we are talking about. The pig with the big snout. So this becomes your subject. Slobbered on a kid. This becomes the predicate. Next we come to slightly complicated one. Not much complicated, slightly complicated. Now earlier we did simple subject and predicate. Now we are doing compound subject and compound predicate. So what is compound subject? A compound subject is made up of two or more simple subjects. Okay? In any sentence, not just one subject is there, but more than one subject is there, then that particular subject will be called as a compound subject. For example, we take this example over here. My sister and I were born in Japan. Now in this sentence, students, you will find that there are two nouns, two subjects that we are talking. Sister is also a subject and I is also a subject. So sister and I, where a sentence where you have more than one simple subject, that becomes a compound subject. Okay? Now one thing you'll realize over here, individual subjects are joined by a coordinating conjunction. Over here, what is the coordinating conjunction? And. So coordinating conjunction, for example, it could be and, or, neither, nor. Such kind of conjunction, if it is used, then you will find that simple subjects will be joined with these conjunctions. Okay? For example, Johnny and Chachi love each other. Now, Johnny is one simple subject, Chachi is another simple subject. Love each other will be predicate, of course, and this is joined by conjunction and, like you have and over here. All right. Neither Ram nor Shyam likes coffee. Neither Ram nor Shyam likes coffee. So Ram and Shyam becomes two simple subjects and joined by the conjunction nor. So you will find, students, that this is explained in a very simple manner over here, but otherwise two simple subjects are joined with the help of conjunctions and, or, neither, nor, things like that. Okay, we move on to compound predicate. A compound predicate is made up of two or more simple predicates. Like we had two or more simple subjects, over here we have two or more simple predicates. Example, we live and work in the United States. Okay, live and work. See over here, live is also an action, a verb, and work is also an action and verb. So over here we find not just one, but we have examples of two simple predicates, live and work. So this sentence will be called as a compound predicate, a sentence which has more than two, a sentence which is made up of two or more simple predicates will be called as compound predicate. So a compound predicate will occur when the subject in the sentence is doing more than one action. Over here he is doing more than one action. He is living also and he is working also. So a compound predicate occurs when the subject in the sentence is doing more than one action and is shared by two or more verbs. Like you can find two or more verbs. Okay. And same rule follows over here. These are attached to each other. These are joined by a conjunction or a connecting word like and, or, but, likewise. Okay. Should we take one more example apart from this? For example, dolphins are swimming and splashing near our dock. The example is not here. I'm just giving you this. Dolphins are swimming and splashing near our dock. Now, dolphins would very clear. It is a simple subject. Are swimming and splashing. Here also you will find two verbs which they are doing, two action which they are doing. They are swimming, at the same time they are splashing near our dock. So over here also, students, you find that there are two verb, two action which is being done, swimming and splashing. So this sentence, swimming and splashing near our dock, this entire thing would be a predicate and this sentence would be called as a compound predicate. Okay. could take a few more examples, but okay, let's move on to this one. A fool and his money are easily parted. Now this is the example of compound subject. This is the first example. A fool and his money. If you can see it clearly, students, what are the two simple subjects that we are talking? This is a example of compound subject, which means in this particular sentence there are two or more subjects. So what are those two? A fool, this is the first one, simple subject, and his money. And is the joining method or the conjunction that we spoke. His money. Now over here one is noun and the other one is thing. Okay. So a fool and his money. Whom, if we just take this sentence, whom are we talking about? A fool and his money. We are talking about two subjects. Are easily parted. This part becomes predicate, and a fool and his money. A fool, his money. These two becomes simple subject. And this sentence, which has more than one simple subject, which has more than two, in fact, over here it is two, which has more than one, this sentence becomes a compound subject. This is an example of compound subject. Okay. Suppose we go to another one. This is again compound subject. Time nor tide waits for no man. Time over here is simple subject. Tide over here is simple subject. See, over here it is not that, when we discussed, we said that it could be a noun, pronoun, thing, it could be anything like that. So time nor tide waits for no man. We are talking about two subjects, time as well as tide. And nor over here, like I explained previously, becomes the conjunction or the joining method, right? So we have two subjects over here. Therefore, this sentence becomes an example of a compound subject. Now an example of compound predicate. The sentence which contains two or more predicate would be an example of compound predicate. Like this is the example. The cat chased and caught the mouse. You find that there are two verbs over here. The cat, very clear, it is the subject. Chased and caught the mouse. Chased becomes the first verb. Caught becomes the second verb. Isn't it? So chased and caught. Chased and caught becomes, there are two verbs, and therefore in this part of the predicate it becomes a compound. Because there are two verbs, therefore it becomes a compound predicate. Next one. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and held over 1,000 patents for his inventions. Again, Thomas Edison, very clear, it's a noun. We are talking about Thomas Edison, therefore this becomes the subject. And what did he do? He invented and held. Two things which is mentioned over here, two actions which he did over here. This is the first verb, this is the second verb. So this entire thing, invented the light bulb and held over 1,000 patents for his invention, this becomes predicate. And this is an example of compound predicate because you have two actions or two verbs over here, more than one verb. Okay, therefore it becomes a compound predicate. Clear, I think? All right. Now we move on to a tricky subject. This is slightly tricky. Now, if we are doing this one, students, you have to be careful with sentences which begins. All right, let's do this one before we move on to the next one. Someday, Miss Reep and her team will get success in their mission. Whom are we talking about? Miss Reep and her team. This is clear. So this becomes the subject, will get success in their mission becomes the predicate. In her pocket, Miss Kia found $1 million. Whom are we talking? Miss Kia. So Miss Kia becomes the subject. With a big smile, Dr. Richmond happily rewarded us all with pizza. Just ask yourself a question. Whom are we talking about? What is this sentence telling us about? that thing or that person becomes the subject. We are talking about Dr. Richmond. So, happily rewarded us all with pizza becomes the predicate, right? Because see over here it has a verb. Found $1 million, found is again a verb. Will get success in their mission, success is another verb. In the fourth example, out of the woods came a bear. Which or what came out of the woods? We are talking about a bear which came out of the woods. So out of the woods came will be the predicate. Sometimes it happens that the predicate could be before the subject also. It is not always that the subject has to be in the beginning followed by a verb. Alright. Now this is what I was actually talking about. You have to be very careful, students, with sentences that begin with there plus a form of the verb like to be or is or are. There is, there are, am, was, were. You need to be careful. How? This is explained over here. Now, if we take this example, there were 3 stray kittens cowering under our porch steps this morning. There were 3 stray kittens. It is marked over here that 3 stray kittens is the subject. Now, if I just ask you what is the subject in this particular sentence, whom are we talking about? Again, the same question. If the sentence starts with there were, then you should not say that there is actually the subject, because were is a verb and therefore there becomes the subject. This should not be the case. There were 3 stray kittens. 3 stray, we are actually talking about those kittens. So 3 stray kittens becomes a subject. Reason is given over here. There is actually not the subject. It merely signals, it merely tells us that the true subject is going to follow. There simply says that the subject is coming. Okay, so there is not the subject. The subject is 3 stray kittens. What would be the predicate? Cowering under our porch steps this morning. If you just ask a question, who was cowering under our porch? 3 stray kittens. So it is very clear. 3 stray kittens becomes the subject. Alright. Now over here also it's written, if you ask who or what before the verb, were cowering, like who were cowering or what was cowering, the answer is 3 stray kittens. So 3 stray kittens becomes the subject. Alright. Now this one. There is no place like home. In this particular, sentence, the subject becomes place. There is no place like home. What are we talking about? It's not just home that we are talking. We are talking about place. Which is the best place? Right? Which is the best place? So, place becomes a subject over here. Is, again, there is, if you go back like here, there could be followed by is or are or am or anything, but there should not be confused with subject. The subject would come after that. Sometimes it happens in the sentence. No place is like home. If you just try and understand this sentence, it would be that there is no place like home. Okay? No place like home, so place becomes the subject. In order to understand a subject, you could just reverse the question and ask. Then it will be clear. Suppose the next one, there are many leaves on the ground. Many leaves on the ground. Many leaves. What is lying on the ground? What are we talking about? We are not talking about the ground. We are actually talking about the leaves which are there on the ground. Isn't it? There should not be confused over here. There is not subject. Many leaves are there on the ground. If you just reverse it, you remove this there from here and you start off with many leaves. Then it will be Many leaves are there on the ground. Now this sounds very clear to you. Many leaves. Whom are we talking about? What are we talking about over here? Many leaves. So many leaves becomes the subject. Are there on the ground. This becomes your predicate. Clear? So even if the sentence starts like there are many leaves on the ground, one should not confuse that because the sentence starts with there is not the subject. You try and see the idea, try and see the real meaning. And how will you see the real meaning? You just need to ask a question. What are we talking about? We are not talking about there. We are talking about many leaves. So many leaves would be the subject. Or another way to find out it, you just reverse it. Many leaves are there on the ground. Okay, this sentence you can easily make out that many leaves is the subject and are there on the ground becomes your predicate. Right? Now we move on to another thing. Subject in an imperative sentence. If you remember your sentence and its kind, students, imperative sentence is one that gives a command or an advice or makes a request. There are three conditions in which an imperative sentence would be there. Either it's a command, the sentence which gives you the sense that there is a command in it, or there in the sentence if the meaning is that it is actually an advice which is being given or a request is being made, then that sentence becomes an imperative sentence. Now one thing over here you need to know is that in the imperative sentence, the subject is always you that we are talking about, okay, which is implied and not mentioned directly. Whenever you see that there is an imperative sentence, you will not find you mentioned over here, over there clearly. This is only implied. Suppose the sentence says stand up, right? Now in all imperative sentence, the implied meaning is that all these sentences are directed to you. Second form, you. You should stand up. This is the meaning of, if only two words are there in the sentence, stand up, right? Stand up means, what kind of an imperative sentence would be? Stand up. If a teacher simply asks you, stand up, it's kind of a command. So this is an imperative sentence. What does it imply? You should stand up. So you will not be clearly written over here. You is an implied way. It is not written, but it is implied. It simply means that this is spoken to you. So you is understood before stand. Right? Stand up means you is not written, but it is meant that you is before stand up. You should stand up. We have other examples as well. Let's see. Give water to the plants. This is kind of an advice or a suggestion which is made. What does it mean? You should give water to the plants. You as a subject is not mentioned over here. It simply means. Another one, don't ever touch my phone. This is again a command. Don't ever touch my phone. Maybe your father, chides you and says, don't you ever touch my phone. So this is again an imperative sentence. Over here, what is this command? To whom is it actually applied? It is applied to you. Father is actually telling you, don't ever touch my phone. So it is not written, but the subject over here is clearly meant that it is you. So the subject in an imperative sentence is always you, which is implied and not mentioned directly. Okay. In an interrogative sentence, now how do we understand the subject in an interrogative sentence? Interrogative sentence is easy to understand, students, when we simply say, even if you don't understand the question, if you see that there is a question mark in the end of the sentence, then it is very clear that it is actually an interrogative sentence. Suppose the sentence says, where is the house? Alright, where is the house? If this is the kind of sentence, then what does it mean? What is the subject over here? The house. Again, the same kind of question that you asked. What are we talking about? Whom are we talking about? So we are talking about the house. And the answer is what? The house is in the next lane. So this could be kind of an answer, isn't it? So whom are we talking about? We are talking about the house. So subject over here means the house. It could be a thing. It could be like this over here. It's a thing. It could be a pronoun. It could be a noun. It could be like that. All right. Second one. Is she awake? Is she awake? Whom are we talking about? We're talking about she, a pronoun. So she becomes the subject. Did she finish her homework? Again, it's a interrogative sentence. Did she finish her homework? Over here, she again becomes the subject. When does Ram want to go to London? Ram wants to go to London in the month of May. This is the answer to it. When does Ram want to go to London? You're asking a question. And whom are you asking? You're asking to Ram. So, the subject in the interrogative sentence, most of the time it is very clear. Okay. Now, before we move on to exclamatory sentence, there is one thing which I would like to tell you. Though it is needed, okay, I can explain it to you. Wait, just give me a minute. So I can explain it to you with the help of an example. Now, it's not written over here. I'm just giving you an example. Sometimes you need to understand the question to find out what exactly are we talking about. Suppose there are two questions. Okay. First one is, who are you? Who are you? Simply, who are you over here? You, whom are we talking about in this sentence? Who are you? We are talking about you. Clear? Who are you? But who over here is not the subject. Whom are we talking? We are talking about you. If you just reverse the sentence, then it will be you are who, in a way, isn't it? So you becomes the subject, are of course is the verb, and who becomes the predicate. Right? Now, these are simple sentences, but I'm just giving you an example wherein you can actually try and find out how to identify the subject in interrogative sentence. So, who are you? Over here, we are talking about you, so you is the subject, right? And who are becomes your predicate. But there could be another sentence where the same who is being considered as something different. For example, who is hiding behind the curtain? Right? This is again starting with who. Who is hiding behind the curtain? Whom are we talking about? We are talking about who. So, in this sentence, who becomes the subject, is hiding behind the curtain becomes your predicate. So, I just gave you this example, student, where in both the sentences, who is being used. But you need to identify, you need to understand the question about whom we are talking. And then you will be able to try and find out the answer. What I mean to say, I hope you understood. I hope you understood what I mean to say. That if we are talking about who in both the sentence, but we are talking about who in as a subject, and in the other sentence it could be a predicate. You just need to identify. The last one, this video is taking very long. Subject in an exclamatory sentence. I'll just wind up a little faster, students. I hope this should not take too much of time. If it's not very clear, I might explain it to you again. We'll just quickly do this one over here. How friendly the chairman behaved. It has an exclamatory mark, so it is very clear. This is an exclamatory sentence. So this sentence is starting from how, but we know that predicate is the description about subject. So the same rule follows. Whom are we talking about? The chairman. Even if it starts with how, it is very clear that the chairman is the subject in exclamatory sentence. What a beautiful girl she is. Again, you ask the same question. Who is the beautiful girl? She. So she becomes the subject. Likewise he, or likewise, oh, I didn't check it. So I Who did not check it? I. So I becomes the subject over here, right? So with this we come to an end. I hope it is clear to you. Okay, so much for today. Thank you.